America is the greatest country in the world with a military budget of $800 billion. The USA has the best military in the world, with over 1,300 fighter jets and over 1 million active soldiers. So how would the United States of America fare against the world of Deepwoken? Well, it's kind of like a coughing bomb versus a hydrogen baby. Anyway, in today's video, I'll be going over the US military's odds of beating Deepwoken bosses. Subscribe and let's get straight into it. First of all, some rules mostly for the US to make things just a little bit more fair, because honestly, most of the stuff in this list is getting swept. The US operatives are incapable of using any sort of song usage. Let's be real, if you gave the American military magic, they'd wipe out just about half the Earth in a day, and probably annex the other half until the next Great Drowning. Which wouldn't happen because they'd already have made allies with the Ministry. And for physical and magical issues, the US can't use any sort of aerial assault warfare within the Void Sea or Void Zones or the Depths and Primadon's Island and stuff like that, just because I don't think it would really make sense. They can't use their radars in the Void Sea, there's nowhere to track. Starting off with the Ferryman, the easiest boss in the game as well as in real life, because the US military would absolutely sweep the Ferryman. He's already on a remote island all alone, so let's say I remove the rule that they can't use their little airplanes and jets in the Void Sea. If they really wanted to, they could just drone strike carpet bomb him and wipe him out before he even realizes he's wanted in the USA. But, you know, because I added the rules, they can't do that. Let's be a bit more fair. Let's say the Void Sea does that, right? Okay. Then the US loads 12 Navy operatives onto an LA-class submarine, which is just ignoring the fact that those submarines usually have 140 people on them. Anyway, the Deepwoken world does have guns like the Flintlock, but I doubt the Ferryman has ever had to stare down the end of a Heckler & Koch HK-416 carbine. And realistically, a few trained soldiers with these can take the Ferryman out before he even has the chance to dodge. And even then, right, he teleports, but he can't just infinitely spam them. So unless he manages to wipe out 8 armored military operatives in one attack, I doubt he's going to be able to win, because as soon as he stops moving, he's eating lead for breakfast. While not a boss, the Lord Regent is likely to become one and is currently an important lore figure, and he's also evil, so the US would probably try and kill him. Anyway, the entirety of Etris vs. the USA is basically just going to be a reenactment of what happened in Guam 1898, but that's only if Etris is smart, because the US can go in for aerial attacks directly on the Lord Regent's castle with their 1,300 active fighter jets. They can airdrop into Etris and the palace with helicopters and jets as well, and then without anti-air defense, Etris can't really do much against this. And even without aerial support, storming Etris from the docks isn't any harder, with the USA's 70 active submarines sporting 120 to 140 armed sailors each. That means we've got about 2,600 aerial units minimum, 8,400 Aqueous units approaching from the docks, nearly 2,000 available attack helicopters with 6 military personnel each, meaning that's 12,000 people. Etris has no chance. Get the Lord Regent off that throne and take over by lunchtime if the US attacks at noon. Once the Lord Regent is stormed, he'll probably kill a few people if he can even get an attack off before getting riddled with holes, because I know he's going to die fighting. But the sheer numbers and power of the US military is not losing to a bunch of swordsmen that can control the wind. Worst case, we do a second Hiroshima. Best case, we annex all of Etris and we retrain them to use our guns. Next is the Primadon, and I'm sure you guys have seen or at least heard of King Kong, right? Like, Primadon's way smaller than that, too, so I don't think I even have to really go over this. Worst case, we drop an L2L bomb straight on Monkey's Paw Island once he's summoned. Best case, we got a big water gorilla added to our units. Duke is the first fight here that may provide a challenge simply for the environment that it's in. With Duke's lab being underground, we no longer have air or sea support, meaning that we need to rely purely on manpower here. More than likely, the US won't have immediate resources needed to kill golems, but it really doesn't matter, because asking for reinforcements with RPGs, grenade launchers, grenades, any explosives will easily be capable of taking out the stone golems pretty easily once reinforcements have finally made it there. As for the monsters outside the lab, let's be real. An M4A1 firing 5.56 doesn't even need 30 rounds to finish everything up there. The golems really are the only threat before the Duke fight. However, in the Duke fight, it is quite different. If Duke's windshield is up, a quick kill really isn't an option, which is where the US might have a problem. Assuming we'd have a normal special ops team in there with 12 men, they may not be able to take out that shield. I'd say honestly, with a normal full squad of 12 men, a 50-50 is probably the chances of them winning against him, especially because the room is sealed off. Once those 12 men are in there, they're in there, and they have to 12v1 him. But if they are able to get this shield down, he's just gone, because those bullets are going flying. Now, if the US decided to send in maybe 24 or 36 men, they definitely win. Like, realistically, 12 might even be overkill, because the more I think about it, just the weaker Duke gets. Does he really have any attacks that are that strong? Like, he has his Pillars of Arisia, but that's just gonna, like, throw people around the room. That's not, like, doing enough force to kill anyone. Maybe injure, yeah, but an injured man can still fire a gun most of the time. So realistically, this is an easy fight, too. I think I overhyped the Duke. The Central Authority is a joke in comparison to the US. Like, let's be real, they're currently the biggest military group in Deepwoken, and they're still a joke. I'm gonna keep this quick. 5.56 45mm armor-piercing rounds shot out of an M4A1 will shred through the Central Authority's about 50mm plated armor, and I guarantee you they don't have a million actively serving soldiers. The Authority gets embarrassed by the USA, and they're about to learn the meaning of patriotism. Big Bomb. Fuck Minitirsa. That entire island is a cesspool. It is monsters and cultists. That's literally it. This place is not worth saving. It's not worth annexing. There's no resources there because it's always snowing. So the US doesn't even have reason to, like, take it over. Just kill everyone there. Bomb the whole island. The depths as a whole actually wouldn't be too much of an issue. There are already existing bases and military groups within the depths like the Ignition Union and the Divers. I'm sure the US could get some military camps done on their first day and then begin immediate construction on more permanent bases. None of the monsters are really a threat either. The heaviest armored creatures down there are the Big Crab and the Broodlords, but explosives and higher velocity bullets than the Deepwoken world has ever known are easily going to pierce through coral armor and a big crustacean. The biggest threat is the Enforcer, who is wearing heavily plated armor, which seems to even outclass the Cuirassier armor, which is the heaviest plated armor in history. We can estimate the Enforcer's armor is about 500mm thick, which is nearly double heavily plated armor used on actual soldiers. Basically, the Enforcer is wearing war elephant armor on a man, meaning bullets aren't going to be able to get through very easily. 12 trained operatives could fire full magazines into the Enforcer and it probably wouldn't get a single pierce. However, lucky for the US military, explosives exist. Grenade launchers, RPGs, and super high caliber armor-piercing rounds from heavy rifles could all get through the Enforcer's armor. The rifles probably won't be viable unless a headshot can kill the Enforcer, but I feel like they wouldn't, because I feel like the Enforcer is more likely to die from overall and total body condition than having vital points that you can use to kill it easily. So as far as monsters go, the depths really aren't much of a sweat. However, the biggest problem is sanity. With the depths, you go insane. We all know this, right? And the longer people spend down there, the more likely they are to go insane and eventually kill themselves. YouTube, don't demonetize me for that. Anyway, because of that, we would have to establish some sort of connection with either the Divers or the Ignition Union as fast as possible, so that way we could, you know, get lamps that would stop people from going insane down there. But that probably wouldn't be too hard, and realistically, if it's any light source, then some LED lights would probably work just as good. I'm pretty sure it's just the dark that makes you go insane. So yeah, the US could just use their, like, M4A1 tack lights and then shine them at people, and now you're not going insane. And then there's also the added benefit of camaraderie, which keeps people sane, because you got your friends around you, and you're gonna be killing a bunch of monsters. How could you be insane doing that, you know? It's free target practice. As for Layer 2, after either stealing technology from the Ignition Union or forming some kind of alliance, because the Divers got their heads way too far up their asses to partner with a military group, the Deep Drill would be easily accessible and used by the United States military, which at this point has taken over Etris. They also either have killed or held the Duke captive, working for them, making golems, which they now have in their military. Imagine golem tanks. That would be sick. Anyway, at this point, they've also taken over and retrained Etris's troops, and they have also earned the favor of the Maestro Evangard for not being affiliated with the Ministry, probably, and they are now the most powerful force in the overworld. But can they conquer Layer 2? Initially, yeah, like realistically with some Ignition guidance, because, you know, the Divers are too pretentious to help, we can easily have the US reach Chaser's Tower before they're even touched by the parasite significantly. Along with that, I'm sure with the 1.3 million operatives, which includes construction workers, I'm sure we could find some easy way to make elevators and escalators and just quick routes to that tower. And I guess you could say because of the temporal stuff we couldn't. Well, I'm sure that we could probably find a way to, transport warmth easier than these Neanderthals in the year 1500 can. You know what a space heater is? Carry a space heater around. The parasites aren't touching you. It's so easy, right? And then, the Union hooks would also make it even easier. We could just use those to get up and down. And Chaser's pretty much no threat. He has no armor or any real defense. Before he even finishes his dumb little speech, he'll probably have a bullet in his brain, and he'll be drilling straight down to Etheron. Now, Etheron is where the USA will face its greatest and honestly only real challenge. With Layer 2 and Floor 2 not allowing for any real traversal, soldiers will need to be sent in on foot at once, meaning super heavy artillery is going to be especially hard to transport. And with the temporal loop of the Floor 1 in Layer 2, it's going to make it even harder because new soldiers are going to be having to kill Chaser every time before they can take their heavy weapons gone, which means you have storage operatives fighting with half of their weapons because they need to carry bigger weapons down to the real operatives. Still doesn't change anything though, Chaser's no threat, it's really just a waste of time. But with 1.3 million US troops, I'm sure they could use multiple men to carry the heavier weapons, and maybe even set up mobile ballistics land-to-air launchers against Etheron. Honestly, I'm not sure the US will be able to hurt Etheron entirely. Actually, yeah, no, we can, right? Because you're in Deepwoken, your dumb little sword can damage him. It's not just your mantras, that sword has no magic in it, you're just strong. But I feel like that has more to do with the Deepwoken's character's physical strength, right? And now that I say that, I can guarantee you I can replicate the strength of a Legion Kata user punching with a ballistic missile and heavy armor piercing rounds. So realistically, yeah, I think all 1.3 million US operatives could beat Etheron. Sure, he's a god avatar, but honestly, he's a really weak one. His laser move and his big purple ball would probably kill thousands of soldiers, but I'm pretty sure the entire arena could be filled and eventually they'd figure out how to use the bone altars if they even need them in the first place, which is unlikely. Realistically, America just sweeps. Like, let's be real. And now they face the biggest threat in all of Deepwoken, the player characters. But is it really a threat when you have 1.3 million soldiers? I guess you could go, oh, but you can't shoot me with that automatic rifle because I have auto parry frames. Cool, get 4 soldiers, line them up, M4A1's fully automatic, right? And all they gotta do is alternate firing and keep you on the defensive until they can get reinforcements to flank behind you and shoot you in the back of the head. Because realistically, if you're stuck in auto parry frames, you can't attack. So if 4 soldiers just alternate who shoots bursts at you, and you're forced to parry all of those bullets or else you're gonna get one shot, well, there's not really a whole lot you can do, because all they gotta do is keep you on the defensive, and then you're getting ganked by all 1.3 million United States officials, alright? That's all that's gonna happen. So, yeah, just the player character wouldn't beat the US Army either, and if you're gonna say, oh, but I have mantra, well, then how are you gonna get out that mantra? The best situation for you as the player character in the game would be in an environment where you have a lot of cover, because then you could, like, run out and then snake some mantras real quick, and you'd probably one-shot people. But you gotta keep in mind, these are basically just mud skippers with lasers shooting at you. So, could you kill 1.3 million mud skippers? I don't think so. If I missed anything or you somehow disagree, comment down below on why. And you're probably European and you don't even understand the military of America. Oh my god, I sweep every single one of your countries by myself. I don't even need the American military. If you're British, I could take over your country single-handedly if I felt like it. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Shoutouts to Goobka, Drizzy Drake fan, and Brick. I love you all. Have an amazing day, and goodbye.